Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 8th episode of 20 Something Live. Thank you so much, as always, for joining me. Today, we have three incredible 20-somethings to be joining you on this live stream. As always, remember that you can send your questions at any point just by hashtagging 20-something live on Twitter. We're going to have today on the show my guy Ben Hogan from over at Circle Talent Agency. He's got over 20 clients, which was extremely impressive today for me as I was looking through his roster. We also have my friend Milana Rabkin, who is an agent at UTA, where she specializes in digital media and is super entrepreneurial and creative. I can't wait to speak with her. And we're going to start off right now with my guy Nick Groff, who works for Interscope full-time. He splits his time between the A&R side at the label and also on the management side. He'll tell you about some of the clients he worked for, and he's put together some pretty cool projects. So we're just going to jump right into it. What's up, Nick?
How are you, Jake?
How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. I'm good.
What's going on?
It's been a busy day, but an exciting one. How's things on your end? You in LA or New York?
I'm in LA. We just had lunch yesterday, so
I feel like you fly out all the time, so I don't know.
All good. No, it was very cool yesterday. Nick and I had lunch with the executive vice president of Interscope, and it was very cool to hear some of his stories. A guy named David Cohn. It was just really, really special. So thanks for having me.
The coolest stories I've heard in a long time. I was really excited about that meeting, actually.
I mean, you walk into somebody's office and they have a framed thank you note from Tupac Shakur. I just can't get over that. You know, how many handwritten thank you notes? I mean, I'm sure he was a very grateful guy. But that's just the kind of stuff that gives you nostalgia that you just can't. That's what we do it for, you know?
Yeah. No, 100%. Just his stories of Dre and Nine Inch Nails are really interesting as well. David's the man.
Definitely. Definitely. So talk to us about how you split your time and some of the projects and things that you're working on right now. I know you guys just launched Insomniac Records, which you're really excited about. Obviously, we originally connected, and I was really fascinated at our first dinner about some of the work that you've done for Avicii. And I think there's a lot that you probably have to share with everybody about how you got here and what you're working on now.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll try to quickly go through the start, but I started international marketing at Interscope about 6 years ago.
And how'd you get the job originally?
I got the job originally. I went to a small private school in Mizzou Pacific, and I wanted to get a big internship my senior year of college. I didn't know what industry I wanted to head into. I thought about sports. I thought about movies for a while, and ended up seeing an internship opportunity at Interscope Records in the international marketing department. Showed up in a suit. I knew that there would be other candidates who had gone to music schools and Ivy League schools, and my mentality going into that was I was going to work longer than everyone else. I was in my senior year of college, had one class at 7 p.m. on Thursdays. And in my interview, I said, hey, look, if you need someone to do coffee runs, I can do that 7 days a week, and I'm pretty much available to start full-time today. They hired me on the spot, which was fortunate. Here ever since. From international marketing, I moved to management / A&R in a really odd transition with a guy named Neil Jacobson. And we managed a couple acts, will.i.am and Robin Thicke at the time. And which was an imprint of Interscope, a joint venture, and ended up signing LMFAO and Khalees to do a dance record, a couple developing acts, Cody Wise, and some other guys that are starting to come out right now. And we really built out the division on both sides. Half of it was A&R, and the other half was management. We moved into producer management. We have a bunch of guys that are pretty prominent within that space: Jeff Basker, Emil Haney, Fernando Garibay, and Ricky Luna, and then we started managing writers, and through our A&R wing, we were also in the last couple of years working on the Avicii project, and once that came to fruition, on the management side, we started managing a bunch of prominent DJs as well, and it's been an odd journey, but I'm excited to come to work every day because I work in several different genres of music, and it's never a dull moment, to say the least.
And talk a little bit about how the Avicii thing started. I was really fascinated with the story as a manager of multiple clients myself, how quickly you guys put together that project and how amazing it's been, because I think dance music really today, it lacks innovation in a lot of ways. And Avicii's album is an album that stands for innovation to me, the blending of so many different genres, and it really made an impact on a global scale. I think a lot of people don't even know that that's a dance record, which is really special.
Yeah, we signed.
Hello? Oh, sorry.
Manager and Tim, and during the Levels campaign, we had gone out and tried to get several different top lines for that record to replace the Etta James sample. And in our plight for top lines, we ended up gathering about 30 great songs to Levels that never saw the light of day because the Etta James sample was doing so well in the marketplace and crossing over onto pop radio naturally. But because of that experience, Tim and Ash were really confident with our ability, myself and Neil Jacobson and some of the other guys here at Interscope. And when he wanted to start working on his record, he came to us with a vision. With as much as I would like to take credit for joining, saying, hey, let's do an album with folk and blues and country singers to a dance album and do something unique and different, it was really Tim's vision coming in and saying, hey, I would love to work with people like Paul Simon and Rufus Wainwright. And he starts to name some of these iconic vocals that he had just been infatuated with growing up that he wanted to work with. And if he couldn't get to those people yet in his career, he'd like to work with people that had similar tones and textures. And so one of the important things for him was that he was here. We're based in Los Angeles. We can set up sessions here pretty fluently. And he took, Monday through Wednesday off, and then would tour on, the weekends. And during those dates, we would get one song Monday, one song Tuesday, one song Wednesday. And he paved out the first 3 months to really work on the record. And by the end, we had Wake Me Up and a couple other really strong songs. And it really took about 3 months to put that album together. But it all started with his mood board, his vision. And from there, it was easy to help him amplify his vision through our network of writers and artists and different collaborators for the record.
And now, based on your work on that, you're working on another project that's really exciting, which I'm not sure, are you allowed to divulge?
Yes, it's an exciting project. Yeah, Avicii opened a lot of doors for us. That album obviously did very well. It was very different. When he premiered it in Miami at Ultra, he premiered half the record in acoustic format, and it was actually hated. A lot of the dance kids and the dance blogs and the dance consumers and the early adopters didn't understand his vision in the beginning, and Tim, a testament to Tim, was that he stuck with it. He knew that he wanted to do something different. For him, it was okay that there was that mass, for him, that reaction was okay because there was a reaction. If he had premiered half the album and nobody responded, we would have been in trouble. But the fact that there was such a big response, even in a negative manner, meant that we could sway people to turn to love it. And Wake Me Up obviously became the hit it became. And as a result of that, we did start working on a bunch of different projects. And we're also now working on the Insomniac joint venture, signing incredible artists. Artie, we're signing another guy that we'll announce in the next couple days. But Avicii definitely did open a lot of doors.
Cool. I see the Beats headphones in the background. Obviously, the whole world now knows about what's gone down with Beats and Apple. How much has the Beats culture infiltrated the Interscope building? It seems like they're almost synonymous these days. And what does it really stand for in the Interscope building?
It's so interesting because I started here, like I said, 6 years ago. And when I started, Beats wasn't even a conversation. And throughout my employment here, I've really watched Jimmy turn a product into being a culture. It's so crazy to think that when I started, headphones were a utility. It was just something you needed to listen to music if you wanted to block people out. Now it's really sneaker culture. There's different headphones, there's different color variations, you're matching them with your outfits, and Jimmy really came in and is someone who's created that culture within the Interscope system, signing incredible, talented artists like Dr. Dre and Nine Inch Nails and the artists that Jimmy's associated with. He tried to apply those same principles to an electronics company with Beats headphones, and watching him, put every video that you'll see at Interscope Records from I think 2008 or 2009 to current, you'll see Beats headphones somewhere, and it was the subtleties that made it such a hit. He got the musical stars to start wearing them at different labels. It wasn't just Interscope Records. We started with seeding them in Interscope videos, and then we would start to get hit up by artists on Sony's roster or Atlantic's roster about wanting to put Beats headphones in their videos because they noticed that the culture was at a turning point and Beats was perceived as a really cool item to have in your videos. And then after that, he went after the athletes, and really watching that whole company just build over the past couple of years into the massive, company that it's become is really interesting. And now I think everyone's seeing that the play with Apple is also more about electronics. It's about the future of Beats music. For a long time, a lot of the internal components, whether it's publishers or writers or managers or different label heads, have all talked about streaming services as being the future of the music industry, and you're starting to see it with some of these large acquisitions, whether it's this Apple deal with Beats or some of the things that Spotify is doing, or Google Play, doing a major push within their infrastructure about stream services and music, and you're starting to see this all become a reality. And Spotify is the #1 consume platform for music in Scandinavia, which was a big turning point. So it's really exciting times to be in the music industry, in all honesty.
Yeah, what do you think is going to happen with streaming? I know we've had that conversation several times, and I think that everybody watching would probably be interested to hear your perspective on it.
I think right now we're at the mercy of ubiquitous Wi-Fi. You go to the gym, and whether you use Spotify or Beats Music or whatever streaming service you use, you program playlists on YouTube, whatever it is, I'll go to the gym and my internet cuts out, so I fall back on a playlist that I've curated myself, that I had to go download the songs, put onto a playlist, and usually I'm listening to something that's not even current. For instance, right now, whenever Spotify or Beats Music or whatever I'm using at the time cuts out, I listen to my November playlist that I put together. And it's frustrating because I'm listening to old music and I want to hear it at the gym, but I don't necessarily want to curate or moderate it every time I want to make a new playlist. And that's kind of what we're at the mercy of right now. Is you want to trust these streaming services as your trusted source or your platform, but you can't yet, because in your car you don't have the new computer that also has Pandora and Spotify and Beats Music or whatever. Maybe you have an 8-inch still, and maybe you just have the radio, and so you still rely on these other sources. But I always reference people like my little sister. If I tell her to go check out a new song, she doesn't go listen to the iTunes preview link. She immediately goes to YouTube, and then if she likes the song, she'll go program it into Beats Music and or Spotify. And I think that's really the future, is the kids that are growing up in the internet consume music in a different manner than even people like myself. I'm 28 years old, and I still go to iTunes, and I know that I'm supposed to switch to Spotify or Beats Music, but I haven't fully trusted that source yet.
Interesting. Yeah, ubiquitous Wi-Fi is going to change a lot of things, because at the point where you could get the song the same way and as fast as you could just by having it stored on your phone because you have that Wi-Fi, I think that's the day that streaming is really going to take off, and it's going to be interesting to see how they change that royalty structure to make sure the artists are paid properly for it. We have our first question from the audience, and remember, at any point you can ask your questions just by tweeting the hashtag 20somethingLive. It comes from Charlie Gliwa. He wants to know, I have a lot of unique music industry experience. How do I get to the next level after college and get a job at a top company?
It really takes, like myself, I didn't have any connects to the music industry. I saw a job posting. I showed up in a suit and I tried to figure out what my competitive advantage was compared to the other people who were also in the lobby for the same position. And I feel like, I've known since I jumped into the music industry that I wanted to work in management and or A&R, and I was lucky enough to work in a department that does both. But I saw international marketing as a way to get my feet wet in the door, and then from there I would navigate to the position that I wanted. And so I tell a lot of people, like, people will come in saying, I would love to be an A&R, I'd love to influence what record labels sign, and I really think that shapes where pop music is headed, especially from a manager's perspective. Then don't be so short-sighted into thinking that you have to join in from A&R. There's so many other people within the label infrastructure, or even outside of it, that find a really talented artist that start out from a management perspective, managing that artist, or just being involved within that artist. They bring it to the right politician, if you will, and then they get absorbed into that infrastructure, and or they get their own, joint venture within the label where they can influence culture from their own perspective. I think right now it's a really unique time for aspiring entrepreneurs or people who want to be in the music industry, and the fact that you have the internet. You don't have to go to the show at the Roxy and check out the coolest band that everyone's talking about. You don't have to just hit up the person that just got his first radio play. You could find the kid on Spotify or SoundCloud that has 300 hits who you think is an incredible musician in the middle of Scandinavia, build a relationship with them, and stay with them throughout their career, whether that moves into a management role, whether that moves into a publicity role, or an A&R position.
Yeah, I think as an you mentioned aspiring entrepreneurs, that's really what it's about, Charlie. I think it's about being able to provide that value to the company and being able to come to that company and directly offer solutions. The internet, as Nick mentioned, it's like in today's world, it's on you to get your education on the internet and be able to come in, and instead of being told what to do or having to climb the corporate ladder or go see the show at the Roxy, as Nick pointed out, you should be able to make a direct and immediate impact, and those are the people that I see getting hired at these companies these days. So hope that answered your question. Nick, talk to me a little bit about the fact that Interscope is one of the only labels, I think more labels are starting to do it, that have both a label and a management division, and how do the two kind of coexist? Because they're, labels and management companies can have very different corporate cultures, or company cultures really, and I think that people would like to hear more about it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that it was Jimmy's vision and or Neil when we started the management division to go out and create a management division within a label. It was a natural progression of what the artists had asked for at the time. Robin Thicke and Will.i.am, wanted to deal. They wanted fluidity between their management and the label, and they thought that, hey, if Neil, manages us, or we bring in a team, we could have instant connectivity to the label. When we started managing Robin, we also didn't know that we were going to build this out to managing writers and producers and DJs. I mean, Robin Thicke is he's an R&B artist, and now we have a healthy roster within the dance world. It was just a natural progression of us networking with the right people, working on different projects, and things came to fruition. So it's like, I think the culture that Interscope built is more about doing unique and interesting things in terms of, if there's a conversation to be had about a management division at the label, what does it look like? How can we structure it? How can we make it make sense? Do we have to limit it to just managing artists on the label? Do they want to manage producers? Okay, how would that work? And it was something where we kind of just made it happen. Like, we started managing a producer. We started getting cuts. We started to have success with that producer. We started managing another producer. When we built the management in the beginning, it started with an artist, and we moved to producer management and writer management, and now we have DJs. So I think the culture of Interscope is more about how can we let entrepreneurs flourish within our organization in a way that feels natural, instead of just trying to do something because people think, oh, well, what if we added a publishing company to the record label, or what if we had a touring entity to the record label? It was more of a natural progression than a distinct effort to start grabbing some of these other, portals of business.
Awesome. I got one last question for you, Nick, and that is, I want you to describe the term A&R. I think that a lot of people are fascinated by the glamour of the term and the fact that you can scout and then sign bands, but talk to us a little bit more about the day-to-day activities of being an A&R and a major label. Artist and
repertoire. Yeah, it's...
Yeah, I don't even think most people, I'm glad you even said that, because I don't think people even know what the term stands for sometimes.
No, artist and repertoire. Yeah, there's so many different variations of A&Ring a record and what that entails and what that looks like. I mean, sometimes you're looking at an artist who is also a producer and or writer. I've worked with several artists that are self-contained, and the term A&R is not about putting them with different writers or producers. It's more about being the politician and the voice for that artist within the record label. You know, amplifying the vision of the artist to our marketing department or publicity department or international department, and how we can connect all the departments to amplify whatever the artist had intended for their album or their single or whatever it is at the time. There's other examples where, you know, you're going out and you're signing an artist that has maybe, you know, the right, you know, some of these singing, you know, platforms, whether it's American Idol and or The Voice or whatever it is, and they have an extraordinary voice, but they've never actually written a song in their life. They have an incredible platform and audience there, but they need different collaborators to come in, and you may be piecing together, hey, it would be really great if you worked with these different writers who have had success within your genre of music, or these different producers, or it's envisioning, hey, what if we did this collaborative record to draw the line between what you were doing online, doing covers, and this artist that you were covering. Maybe you're doing a featured record so that we can connect those dots. And then from there, it's really staying close to the artist and keeping up that relationship with the artist. You know, artists aren't always recording. Sometimes they, you know, record an album in, like Avicii. Avicii recorded his album from January to March. And then we finished up some records shortly after that. And then he went on a world tour. You know, when he went on a world tour, we're still sending him records knowing that in the future he's going to work on a new album. Whether he was focused on working on that material or not, it was the connectivity that you were trying to capture. And I think that's really important for, you know, the term. It's not just, okay, you finished the album, it's off to the plant, or it's on Spotify, your job is done. You're continuing that push. If they need remixes done, you're helping commission remixes. If they need, you know, help with a collaboration, or they want to start working on an international bonus record, you're really helping out with all those different facets of their career.
Awesome, Nick. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and go Seahawks.
Yeah, for sure. All right, guys.
All right,
We're going.
Nick's from Seattle, and I swear that after the Seahawks won the Super Bowl, he had it glued to his head, that hat. Yeah, he's laughing. Anyway, Nick and I over the past couple of years, or I guess year really, have had a lot of talks about where the digital world is going to go for music, and so I'd like to welcome somebody to our show who can hopefully shed some more light on it. Here's Milana Rabkin from UTA. What's up, Milana? Hello?
Can you guys hear me now?
Now we can.
There we go. Sorry. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Jake, for having me.
That looks like, is that a cubicle office?
No. Not
no,
really.
It's like a full...
It's a full office. I don't know why they gave me a good office.
Oh, yeah.
Must
You
like
get
me
hooked
here.
up. I didn't even mean, you know what I meant? I meant like it actually looked like you had a lot
like
of
a
stuff
clear
going
box.
Yeah, like you have like a lot of stuff going on, and it just, yeah. You look
Yeah, there's a
super
lot of shit here.
professional.
A
and
messy
busy.
desk. I actually admit I got up and cleaned things a little bit, organized it so it didn't look like a total mess.
What does
It's
it say in the
fun.
background? It says we have a strategic plan. It's called doing things. I like
Yeah.
it.
So my boss, Brent, who runs the group, gave each of us a poster a couple weeks ago. I don't know. He saw it somewhere and then just ordered one for everyone.
My dad always says there's IQ, there's EQ, and then there's GIDQ, which is get it done Q.
There we go.
Yeah, of course. So what does it mean to be a digital media agent?
I'm still figuring it out. It's really weird and fun. I was one of the first hires in the group here. I actually got brought on for the second evolution of it. So Brent Weinstein, who's my boss, who started the digital group at UT about 8 years ago, first conceptualized it as, kind of an incubator for talent for the rest of the agency. So this is when a lot of talent was emerging off of YouTube, and a lot of blogs were emerging and becoming valuable pieces of IP that would then transition into publishing or into TV and film. Like my dad says, was I think one of the first ones. And that's what the group launched as. And then a couple of years later, they wanted to rethink a little bit, so they brought in a whole new group of people. I was one of the first, and it's really evolved since then. We have I would say, 6 different areas of practice, ranging from social media to video games, consulting practice, and then working with early stage startups where we incubate companies, but also more recently it's become investing in early stage technology companies, which is my main area of focus recently, which has been exciting because it started as, identifying YouTube stars and talent. I was the person who sat on the computer and watched 40 hours of video a day and just kind of browsed the web. And I remember thinking to myself, I wonder how I can get someone to pay me to do this all day. And I did. I can't believe it still. To, being the person who, inside of a large talent agency, had to talk to our clients about digital and social. And, early days it was about, what's this thing, Facebook, and should I be using it to interact with my fans, and what's Twitter? And so, kind of had to talk about all of these things. But then as digital became more relevant and more of an important thing for our clients, we started growing the team and bringing on people to really focus on these special things. So we have, people who focus on social media, people who represent online talent, people who really focus on packaging content with our existing clients specifically for the web, and then it's really grown from there.
And what are some of those? You mentioned early stage startups. Is there a good example of how you partnered with one of those or invested and kind of helped grow their business?
Yeah, for sure. So in the beginning, my job was really to know about all of the cool technology and companies that were out there. My bosses here said that it's inevitable that technology is going to change our business, and that the tech companies coming out of San Francisco are going to bring the audiences closer to our talent, and it's going to get rid of the middlemen to some extent. And we're not afraid of it, and we shouldn't be. In fact, I want you to help, bring these companies closer to our clients, because at the end of the day, it creates more opportunities for our talent to be more entrepreneurial and to do what they do best. And regardless of it, we're going to be in the middle of it. And so one of the first companies that I really clung to and got really excited about was a company called Kickstarter, which back then, I think I read about them on a blog, and they had 10 projects on the site, and I reached out to them blindly and got no response. But then on accident, one of our senior business executives here at the company set a meeting with Yancey, the founder of Kickstarter, and brought him in, and I was so excited. And in the meeting coming out of it, I was like, I promise you, I will do everything I can to find the biggest project. I want to bring you the biggest project ever for Kickstarter. And we spent a lot of time, and it was actually really hard because a lot of clients were first really afraid of it. They were like, what do you mean I have to ask my fans for money to make this movie? I don't even want to tell people about this idea I want to do. Why can't you guys just go find me money from independent financiers? So it took a lot of time to find the right smaller clients who really needed it, the independent filmmakers, to put together some success stories and show and get people comfortable with the idea of using it, and getting other agents comfortable about getting their clients to use it. And along the way, we had another client here by the name of Rob Thomas, who's a TV producer mostly known for creating Veronica Mars, the series. And he actually came to us and said, you know what, I've been wanting to make Veronica Mars the movie for so many years, but Warner Brothers, for whatever reason, isn't going to make it, and they have the rights to it. And I've heard about crowdfunding and crowdsourcing, and what is that? Is that something I should be considering? What's Kickstarter and Indiegogo, and what's the difference of all these sites? And so, we talked him through the pros and cons of each site, introduced him to different companies, and Kickstarter really felt like the right move. And so we introduced Kickstarter to Rob, and the Kickstarter team was incredibly helpful. And it spent 2.5 years navigating the world of trying to put together Veronica Mars, the movie, on Kickstarter, and getting Warner Brothers, the studio, comfortable with it. And, it was one of those kind of, I hate using the word groundbreaking, but it was a big project and a big story, not only for our client, but for the agency and for the entertainment industry, and kind of paved the way, I think. So that was one of the first kind of partnership type of companies. But around the same time, there was another company that we actually, as an agency, incubated. One of our clients, Brian Robbins, who produces a lot of the big TV shows for Nickelodeon and Disney. I don't know if you guys ever watched All That, but he produced All That and all of the shows that spun out of it with the characters. And he came to us and said, I've been producing stuff for Nickelodeon and Disney forever, but my kids don't really watch that stuff anymore either. And they're all sitting online on YouTube all day. and there's not a Nickelodeon or Disney for YouTube. Why shouldn't we create it? Like, let's go do it. And we did. And we spent a couple of years, putting together a business model, and he had a real vision for it. We went to YouTube. Everything is about timing. And luckily for us at that time, YouTube was really taking seriously the consideration of investing in original content. And that was when like Netflix was just doing their big series, and Hulu was also putting money into original content. And so for YouTube, their version of it was investing in people and companies who wanted to build really specific verticals on YouTube to create channels. And
that first round was like, it was 100 channels, right, that they got behind?
Yeah, it was actually meant to be less, I think, but they ended up doing 100 channels. And we, were lucky enough to get the first deal with them, and it was Awesomeness, and it kind of set the template for everyone else.
Because Awesomeness, I'm not sure if everyone knows that's watching, but Awesomeness was recently, right, sold for a lot of money.
Yeah, so that was actually interesting, because there's a couple of interesting things that we discovered with it. One, we got funding and a grant from YouTube.
Did they own a piece of the company at that point?
No, and that's what was so amazing, is that the deal with YouTube is that they didn't take any equity. For them, they just wanted to get really great content, knowing that if there was great content, that good advertisers and brands would come and want to advertise against that content, and then they would recoup on that. But, the money they were giving was not a lot of money when you think about what it takes to produce a TV show or a film. And honestly, the money we got for Awesomeness in the beginning was less than what it cost to produce a couple of episodes of TV. And we had to produce enough content to fill a year worth of content. And so what we ended up doing is going and raising venture capital, which was also really funny, because we were raising venture capital for a content company. And for those of you who are familiar with the venture capital world or Silicon Valley, like, those investors are, for the most part, petrified of content. Like, they get technology, but they don't get story or idea in the traditional sense. So that was really interesting as well, that we were able to go raise money from VC, and in LA. It was really exciting, because that's also, again, perfect timing, where there was a flow of capital here from investors both in San Francisco and LA that wanted to help grow the tech community in LA and the startup community. So we were able to take advantage of that as well. And then, in a year and a half from launch, we kind of created this amazingly strong digital studio that Awesomeness became at, creating great short-form content for the web that a lot of the traditional big studios, despite how much money they had or access or how much resources they had at their disposal, still weren't able to create that, great digital content that stuck, that resonated. And so they became a real viable acquisition for a company like DreamWorks. We got excited about the partnership and using Awesomeness and the talent there and the people there and the brain power and their expertise in digital, and applying it to what DreamWorks was doing in the traditional space.
It's incredible to be there from the beginning and then see it all the way to the point at which it gets sold and partner with such an amazing company like DreamWorks. Nicole, he wants to know what we think the job market in the music industry is like right now, high and low turnover rates, etc.
Interesting. Honestly, I think the music business has become more entrepreneurial than ever before. Like, I'm seeing a lot of people who are becoming really successful just not necessarily starting in the traditional way, just starting it themselves and being entrepreneurial about it. I think that it's funny. I don't know what the turnover is like at the studios or at the music label specifically, but I feel like they're always hiring, and at least in the digital department, I think there's been a lot of turnover because they didn't know what specific skill sets to look for when they were hiring people. And so, I think it's like a trial and error type of thing they've gone through, and, hired a bunch of people who seem to be experts. But, sometimes with these new types of jobs, it doesn't matter how much time experience you have. I think it's about how you think, and you can't really measure or be able to really, test for that by looking at a resume.
Yeah, so what are some of the ways that you proved that early on? Obviously, you guys had this blank slate as a new division of the company, and what did it take? Was it being able to provide the value to the clients like Kickstarter, or proving, was there a lot of doubt when you guys started working with Awesomeness TV that could be something that could be so big. I mean, I know that our lawyer actually forwarded to us when that sold for no reason whatsoever. He was just thought we'd be interested in reading that article because it was that big of a story, which is really cool because there's so many YouTube channels these days that the tail of revenue is really longer than ever. It's kind of like music or anything else. The blockbusters really win. I mean, 1 out of every 3 songs that gets posted on iTunes only has 1 sale. So it's like with that happening, was there a lot of doubt, and then how did you guys overcome it?
Yeah, I think one of the first things that was always challenging, and still kind of is like, how do we make money, right? Because
right, that's what I was thinking as you were kind of telling me your Kickstarter story.
Yeah, it's like, you know, agencies traditionally make money off of taking a commission, or that's what people perceive. But the truth is that most agencies make money off of TV packages, which means that they actually own a piece of equity in the IP, in the intellectual property of the show. So it's not that they take 10% of the, you know, money that the studio pays the writers, directors, and producers, because sometimes they do, but the real money comes in when they can actually take a piece of the pie, which they really see return from when the show goes into syndication.
Now, is that only at UTA because it's definitely not focused, but it's like that's your guy's strength is TV?
No, I think that's the case for most agencies. Really, a lot of the revenue comes from these TV packages, and you know, TV packages of shows like CSI, when they go into syndication across the world, are in the hundreds of millions of dollars.
It's TV over movies and technology and all IP, or just IP in general?
It's a part of the package, so it's in the IP, but you know, the IP can travel to film, and it can travel into other territories, and so if you're participating on the package side of it, then you're participating in the revenue across the board. And so with that said, you know, when we started thinking about, okay, what is the revenue model for the digital group, it became hard because for us, taking like 10% of our clients' fees in digital, or taking 10% of equity of a percentage of a package for a digital project, actually is really not a good business for us, because the package fees, or the budgets for these digital series are not that high. They're like $10,000 or $20,000 because everyone's working on a really small budget and doing and pulling favors left and right to get projects done. That's like the beauty of YouTube, the beauty of the web. So for us to commission it is actually not that great. So on the traditional side of what, you know, how agencies commission things for digital, it's actually not a core real, it's not a real revenue generating business for the digital group. So like we've always had to kind of think about, well, no, other than being a service add to the agency, which is always great and definitely valuable, how can we actually build our own sustainable business model that, you know, generates revenue just from the digital group? You know, and we've been experimenting with the consulting practice, which is a retainer-based business where outside companies or brands pay us a fee for our expertise. And recently, you know, we started taking equity in companies and investing. So it's not that we're just taking a percentage of equity in a startup for us doing work for them. We're actually putting money in and we're investing, hoping that in the long term in our investment and us helping the startup grow, when that company sells 4, 5, 6 years down the line, you know, we're not going to get lucky like we did with Awesomeness with seeing a return a year and a half from then. I mean, I hope, but I don't think that that's really the way things work out. You know, we're kind of taking a bet on that.
What was the final sale number for that? I assume it was public. That's why
no, it's public. It's public. I don't want to say the wrong number out loud, but it was in the $30 million up front with a potential earnout that was over $100 million.
So imagine starting a YouTube channel for everybody out there, since that's really, you know, today's world. It's only a couple clicks of a button. Obviously, it takes a lot more work than that, and a whole team of people to get to where Awesomeness TV did. But if you really want to do it, there's no more gatekeepers to creating amazing content online, which is really amazing. What percentage of your office, Milana, is female to male?
It's funny. I would say it's 50-50, at least in my group, in the digital group. Yeah.
And our
group's pretty young.
Has that been an advantage for you? Talk about outside the office, then if it's really equal inside the office, it's amazing. But as being a woman, young professional in the industry, has that been a positive? Do you feel like you've ever been judged for it?
Yeah.
How do you deal with it? And what advice do you have for, you know, young women out there that are looking to get into positions similar to yours?
For sure. So in the beginning, I was actually really conscious of it. It's funny, my hair is blonde now, and I actually just dyed it blonde last week for the first time in 6 years. And when I started working,
I've heard that before.
No, it's true. When I started working and I went into the mailroom at William Morris Endeavor, I got some advice from a mentor of mine who said, do not act like you're already young, you're pretty, like, play it down. So I dyed my hair dark, I wore pants every single day, I wore sweaters, like really baggy stuff, and wasn't stylish because I didn't want for people to think and look at me as like, oh, the cute girl in the office. I wanted people to listen and like take me seriously. And so it's always been kind of a struggle in doing that in the beginning, especially because agencies are such like male-driven environments. And so at first, I thought it was a bit of a disadvantage, but then as I got more comfortable with it, you know, a part of it I started realizing that like, okay, a part of the advantage that I have is that I am young and I have a lot of energy, and like people don't mind sitting in a room with me for half an hour and just talking to me. So like I used a little bit to my advantage to be able to get in a room and, you know, get coffee with someone. Like no one really said no, but you can get in the room, but then like how do you actually get that person's attention and get them to care? And so the hard thing was, you know, making sure that you had a point of view on things and making sure that you were educated and prepared before you got in the room with the person. And like I always was like really conscious of the fact of, you know, what can I say to get this person to actually take me seriously? Because it's really easy, I mean, to be honest, like for a young girl, you know, sometimes these drinks or these coffees sometimes can feel like dates. And it's like, well, how do you make it really clear to the other person that you're talking to that like you're not interested? Like, don't flirt with me. Let's have, you know, a real business relationship where we can be friends. And it's a hard balance. I think you just got to find what you're comfortable with, but also you have to kind of be able to back it up. So you could use a little bit of it to your advantage to get your foot in the door or to get someone's attention, but then you really have to have substance there to back it up to be able to continue a relationship with that person.
Awesome, Milana. Thank you so much for joining us on 20-something Live. I know how busy you are, so we'll let you get back to doing things, if you will, in your gorgeous office. And thank you for joining us on the show.
Thanks, Jake.
Of course. Cool. All right, guys, it's time of the week. Time for the book of the week. This is Today We Are Rich by my good friend Tim Sanders. He's got a pretty cool startup that he's working on right now in Las Vegas. But we've showcased his book as the first book of the week that we ever did. He actually inspired me to start this live stream podcast, as he's been a giant mentor in the process of me beginning to write my own book, which will be called 20-something, obviously a term that he originally coined for me. So, yeah, thank you to him, and be sure to check out Today We Are Rich, because every day we have to realize everything that we have to be thankful for. And now shifting gears from somebody who might not necessarily make their money on commissions to somebody who surely does, I want to welcome my good friend Ben Hogan from over at Circle Talent Agency.
Hey man, how you doing?
Ben, you must have been cringing when Milana said she didn't make money off commissions.
Yeah, I mean that's a pretty foreign idea to me. Obviously, as a commission for music, where we make our money off live shows, and you try to sign as many acts and book as many shows as you can. So that was very different and informative to me.
I was shocked today. I was shocked today when you sent me over your roster, because I always forget how many clients great agents work on. I mean, it's really remarkable. I mean, how do you balance what I was counting? I think it was 25 clients.
Yeah, it's 25, 26 right now. And honestly,
you signed another one in the last hour.
Yeah, I just brought on. Yeah, I've kind of been working on building my roster for the last couple of years, and it started out with just a handful of guys, and now it's really about volume. I think being a good agent is about talking to promoters for small 300-person shows, and talking to AG and Live Nation about national tours, and talking to festival promoters. And in order to do that, you have to have a full volume of clients. You have to have guys that are just starting out. You have to have your headliners, and the only way to do that is to sign a large volume of acts. So that was kind of my goal, and now I'm really happy with the team that I have. So.
How long have you been an agent for now?
I've been working as an agent, or I was a junior agent before this, working under Steve for about 6 years. So it's been a long road.
Awesome. And talk to us about some of the rises of some of your, I don't want to say favorite clients, but maybe your favorite stories for some of your top clients.
Yeah, I mean, the first client that I had that kind of broke out as a bigger headliner was definitely Bro Safari, who is doing very well right now. And I signed him kind of by chance. We were at South by Southwest. Bro Safari is Nick from Evil Intent, and he was kind of making a transition from that group into his new project, which was at the time not really something that was gigging, not very well known. He was doing Moonbatone, and we sat down at South by, and he kind of asked me if I thought Bro Safari was going to be a big project. He's got a family, and he has a lot of other obligations, so he wanted to make sure that this was a project he was starting out with that would be able to support his family, support himself. And we sat down and kind of talked about ideals, and I was like, let me work on this for 3-4 months. I think that this is going to be big. And he was at the time making all this trap music that he had yet to put out. And right around then is when the explosion of trap music really happened. And over the years he's grown from doing 200, 300 person shows and soft ticket club nights to now we're doing 2 full national tours this fall. Total like 53 markets, and we've sold out every show we've done this year so far. So
wow, massive,
pretty amazing. Yeah,
very cool,
awesome.
So how'd you first get involved with Circle?
I started out of high school. We were actually throwing our own raves, myself and my best friend. We didn't really know too much about the culture, but we were 17, 18, and DJing and throwing our own raves, and we ended up getting kind of screwed over by a club that we were promoting shows at for $3 or $4 grand one night, which completely bankrupted us. We had no idea what we were doing, and I had heard
it all on the line.
Yeah, exactly.
That's for everybody out there. That's where it all begins. It begins when you have it all on the line.
Yeah, I had zero, and I didn't know really what I wanted to do with my life. I just quit D1 swimming at school, and so I had like all this free time, and I had heard that.
Were your parents supportive at that point?
Yeah, they were very supportive.
D1 swimming for raves, okay.
Yeah, they were right behind me. So I don't think they knew really what it was going to become, but we met Steve Gordon, who's my boss now, and at the time was running Steve's promo, and I had met him because I had heard that he also had problems with the same club. So we went and sat down in a meeting with him, and I actually started just flyering and promoting for Steve's promo for the shows we were doing in the Northeast, selling tickets because I knew kids in the county that we could bring down into the city, and working production for him. Like I would work, physical labor at the events because I knew remedial sound stuff. And so after a couple of years of doing that and building with him, one day he came to me and was like, I'm focusing on the agency. Like, do you think you would want to do something like this? Like, we book the gigs and we run the calendars for the clients. I think you'd be good at it. And I told him I'd try it out, and I started out basically just showing up and opening up an Excel spreadsheet and calling promoters to get their updated information so we could email them our avails. That was like my first day, and literally started like right at the very bottom, being his assistant and trying to learn the industry. And then we had some clients that after a couple of months he allowed me to work on, guys like Eli Smith and Hot Pink DeLorean and Computer Club that were in the electro space. And I just kind of started out right there, just confirming shows, talking to promoters, getting sent a list of 40 promoters and just emailing all of them with, this very small roster I had and trying to get, shows done. So really started there, and I've been kind of building on it ever since.
Cool, 25 deep. So what's going on right now in the space that excites you or that you're seeing somebody that's really innovating?
Yeah, I think right now, I'm seeing a very high amount of attention being put on expanding from the typical DJ show, one DJ who is, performing on CDJs and playing his own music and other people's music, and I'm kind of seeing like a shift towards what else can the artist bring to the table in terms of a live performance. Whether that's, obviously the amount of production that some of the artists like Corella and Excision and Datsik have brought to the table over the years, or, live vocals or live instrumentals. I kind of see the music industry going more towards, what else can you do besides DJ that makes a live show, next level, or what makes the next level. And with that, I think you're seeing a lot of new live EDM acts come out and enter the space, and I think that's probably something that's going to be very important over the next couple of years.
Who are some of the acts that are doing that really well?
Well, I think we have an act, Destroyed, which is Excision's live project that he took a ton of money and a ton of time and put it into basically creating a live EDM outfit that's playing bass music but doing it with MIDI instruments and live drums. And then you've got groups like Disclosure, obviously coming onto the scene and playing a truly live set, even though it's very dance driven. Those are just two examples, but I think any element of live music that's incorporated into EDM. I saw Galantis at Coachella; they were great, and there's a lot of groups that are kind of bringing that element of live musicianship, into their music, and I think that's going to be very important over the next couple of years.
It always fascinates me how many people we have on the show or people I'm friends with in the industry that started off as promoters.
Yeah.
What do you think is the key traits that led you in your situation? It sounds like you went out of your way to meet with Steve because you'd heard he'd been screwed over by the same promoter, which was a very proactive move, which has obviously led to, imagine if for some reason you didn't make that phone call where you'd be today, obviously your life would be really different. What are some of those key quality traits that you see from some other successful people that you're surrounded with that are in their 20s that has led them to get to where they are?
Yeah,
or in your case, what's really led you?
Yeah, I think, having a promoter background and entering that space, first of all, it's brutal. It's up and down. You lose money. You will lose money. You will fail, no matter what.
Guaranteed.
Every promoter has. Will happen. You work long hours. You get a lot of work ethic. You have to do a lot of things by yourself that typically I think you would have a team to help you do. At Steve's promo, there were 3 or 4 of us at times that were running an entire event, and you have to depend on other people. You have to trust other people. You have to communicate well. And also, from a dance music perspective, you get to interact directly with the artists from the get-go. Even if I was at the lowest point just working production, I still got to interact with, I think the first show I ever worked was Mastercraft, and sit down and talk to those guys. Even for 5 minutes, you got the feeling like, wow, these guys are rock stars, first of all, and second of all, know what they're doing. And there's a lot of intelligence going into these projects, and these guys are really smart and dynamic. And so I think just being able to interact with the artist directly and having to work your tail off to get anywhere really in the promotion world. There are a lot of guys that are, agents, managers today that started out as promoters, and you can kind of see how that benefits you. I think if you start out buying something, you can end up being very good at selling it. I remember we used to sit around in the office and we'd hit an agent up and say, how much for this guy, and we'd get the quote back and be like, how can he cost that much money? And then now we're the guys on the other side, we're sending the quote, and the same promoters are probably saying the exact same thing. So I think it's just it's kind of a circular relationship there.
Cool. What do you look for in a young artist when you go to sign them?
Well, right now I feel like it's just gotten so competitive, and there are so many artists out there that you really look for everything. You look for, for me, we sign on the music. We always have at Circle. That's how I learned from Steve to sign acts. So the first thing you look for is the music has to be there on every level. I think the second thing you look for is, does this artist have the capability or the team behind them to really view their career as, in terms of 5-10 years, and as a business? This is the music industry. If you just want to make music and put it on your SoundCloud, you're more than free. You're free to do that. But building a brand and building a project takes, initiative and intelligence and, passion that not necessarily everybody has. So I think you look for the personality in the artist and their team that leads you to believe that, they're going to succeed no matter, whatever the cost may be. And I think you look at music and from there you kind of can construct like whether or not it's going to be somebody you want to work with every day and grind with to grow the brand.
Yeah, those relationships, it's almost like a family. You got to really choose wisely. The thing I always look for is if I feel like an act is different than every other act in the world, and I can actually explain that. If it's so tangible, if I explain it to you, whether you've heard it or not. I mean, obviously the music has to be great, like you mentioned. That is the single most identifying factor. But the second is sort of a mix of that, and like you said, whether they have the persistence to actually, kind of their own self-team, if you will, to make it happen.
Yeah, I think
a lot of them don't.
Yeah, I mean, and the other thing is in music, I think, especially with how competitive it is and how much music is out there, there's going to be times when even the best people will put out an album and it doesn't do as well as they wanted it to, or they'll suffer, fallbacks and certain down points, and just being able to persevere through that and seeing that vision in someone who's young and energetic and hungry is, if you can see that and you click with that person or with their team, you kind of know, like, at that moment, like, yeah, there's going to be a level of success with this person because that's what they're driven to do.
So you at some point made the move from the East Coast to LA then?
Yeah, I actually, you know, at that point I was working for Steve. I was a senior in college at Towson University. I think I had like 7 classes left. Steve.
So you were starting this whole thing when you were in college, which is worth mentioning too. I know I can't tell you the amount of emails I get every day with people in college looking for something to do. So you started while you were in college.
Yeah, I was working full-time for Steve while I was going to college. I would sometimes have to leave the office and go do a lab and then come back, and it was very stressful for sure. But I was still kind of maintaining it. I was taking a lot of night classes where I'd, you know, leave the office at 6, go to a 6:30 class. But I hadn't graduated yet. I had a ways to go. I had like 8 or 10 classes left. And Steve went out to LA for a meeting, came back, kind of sat down with me and was like, I think we're moving to LA. And I think we're going to move pretty soon.
He just includes you in it.
Yeah, and he was like, what are you going to do about your family? What are you going to do about your girl? What are you going to do about college? And I was like, you know, to be honest, I'm going to drop out of college and move to LA, and, you know, my family will be supportive, whatever. But I kind of made the decision right away. This is something I wanted to do, so it was exciting.
You didn't mention what you did with the girl.
Yeah, we're not together anymore. So.
Have you found it difficult to be in the industry and maintain a normal life?
I have actually. I have a great girlfriend. We live together. I live in Hollywood, probably, you know, stone's throw away from Avalon and Lure and all those spots. And, you know, I think you have to be willing to travel. You know, you lose a lot of weekends. I'm going to Vegas on Saturday and then going back to Vegas in 2 weeks and going to E-Farce the week after that. But as long as you're open to kind of going with the flow and living day by day, I think it can be fairly easy, at least for right now. I definitely think so, yeah.
Cool. I guess we'll leave you with one last question. Which client are you most excited about on your roster for this upcoming fall?
For the fall,
I'm already looking to the fall. Yeah.
Yeah. For the fall, I just picked up an act called Slander that I'm working on with your friend Will Runzel, and I'm pretty excited for them. They're really hungry and really excited, and they just joined the roster, and we booked like 9 or 10 shows in 2 weeks for them, and, you know, we're going out to Vegas to see them on Saturday. But they're really good dudes, and they're really excited, and it's, you know, they're pretty exciting for the fall for sure.
Awesome. Cool, Ben. Well, thanks for joining us on 20-something Live.
Yeah, awesome, man. Good to talk to you.
You as well. And congrats on everything.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you.
See ya.
Before we head out, I want to shout out to the painter of the amazing photographs behind me. Well, I guess they're not photographs, right? They're paintings of Kanye West and Jay-Z, done by my guy Patrick Skoff. That's Skoff. And for the song of the week, if you haven't heard it yet, Sam Smith collaborated with Mary J. Blige on his single, the revisit of his single, Stay With Me. It's incredible, and finally an artist that makes amazing timeless music, which we have too little of in our world today. So thank you guys all for joining me. I'll see you guys next week. And I think that we got the schedule posted everywhere. We've assembled 4 weeks for you straight in a row here. I look forward to seeing you guys again. Thank you.